Ready to embark on a journey of limitless curiosity? Join us on the Being Curious Show, where we curiously connect teachers and seekers in a safe space, exploring a vast array of topics that spark the flame of curiosity within you. We've created a community for thoughtful discussions where teachers share their wisdom and seekers explore the depths of their curiosity. It's a space where diverse perspectives come together, fostering connection and understanding. Our intention is simple: to ignite your curiosity and create a life that totally lights you up. Hey, everybody, it is Kelly, back from Jamaica, from the Being Curious Show, where we get the opportunity to speak with people from all over the world and very curious souls. So today we have just pimping the Edge magazine out a little bit. You know, something that we really do is we read the books in the back section where it says books we're reading. Like it's really important for us. And today we have an amazing lady with us, Katherine Barton, and she is an author. She is a coach. She is a spiritual guide, a speaker. She's a woman that's been through it and come out the other side in this beautiful, powerful way. And I'm so excited to have this beautiful conversation with her today. And I'm just going to bring her on in and welcome her to the stage. Hello.
Hey, Kelly, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for being on the show. And thank you for sharing your book with the world and being a part of the Edge magazine. It is just such an honor.
It's my pleasure. And I'm just joined so many people that make such amazing contributions. So thank you.
Well, fantastic. That makes a little girl really happy. Well, so you wrote this book, and it is called Yearning for Love, A Reluctant Divorcee's Rocky Road to Nirvana. And we're not talking about the Kurt Cobain Nirvana. We're talking about another beautiful, beautiful frequency and energy. Tell us a little bit about what inspired you to write this book. I mean, I know with the title, what inspired you, but what for anybody that has gone through, it's really funny. I'm starting to see my bubbles and starting to channel right. I was like so many different ways that we could take this conversation because you're just an amazing soul and you have so much to share. So tell us what inspired you to write the book.
Well, thank you, Kelly. What a lovely acknowledgement. Well, it really is about, I was very unhappy in my marriage, and I thought it was all his fault. And the more I looked at that, I found out very much that it was me that had an enormous number of beliefs, very negative beliefs that really kept me in the marriage. One of them was that even though I proposed to be a feminist, I had actually sponsored international conferences on women in the world and so forth. When it came down to it, I really kind of wanted to be a Cinderella, an at-home Cinderella who took care of the house and baked cookies.
Okay.
And that, so that was one belief that I discovered about myself. And of course, I also believe the myth that marriage was happily ever after. I'm the child of a Methodist minister, and the images of the church and of the faith were very strong in my upbringing. And even though I haven't been to that congregation in many, many years, I was realizing it was that belief that this was going to last forever that was actually determining my life, and it was killing me.
Yeah.
So what the biggest thing was that I wanted particularly women, but also men, anyone, to see that they did not have to be imprisoned by things that they were taught in their childhood and things that they had been brainwashed with the society. That freedom was really about creating, recovering your own inner strength and finding a whole different set of philosophies to live by, that maybe it was much more in keeping with the person that you were rather than the person that your parents raised you to be. So I really had a huge passion about that. And that's what drove me to write the book.
That's fantastic. Like, oh my gosh. And if more people, I have a lot of friends that are divorced, and when and I've been with my husband for almost 30 years, and we've had our great days and we've had our not so great days, right? I mean, it's how we're two different people, as you were two different people. And if you don't show up every day, wanting to be a part of it, or I just saw like drinking the Kool-Aid of what you're told as a little girl or a little boy.
Right.
It does a disservice to both souls and both
Yes.
agreements. Um, what made you tell me about the divorce? And I don't know why I'm there, because it seems like it was definitely a long time coming.
Right.
But then it's interesting how I say that, but I keep seeing the word that there is relief. There was relief in the end.
Yeah.
And I don't, and that's, I think, very, very important to share with people.
And
And the whole till death do you part. And oh, that's where I was going with it. The friends that are divorced, they feel like it's this whole death do us part. And it is programming that is so unfortunate that people stay when they shouldn't, if that makes any weird sense.
right. Right. Well, there's actually a book out there called Too Good to Go, Too Bad to Stay.
Oh,
And I knew about the book, but I wouldn't read the book because 'cause I that's exactly what I had. I had too good to go, too bad to stay. I had an extraordinarily supportive husband in many ways. He financially supported my spiritual work. He genuinely wanted me to be happy. Um, but as time went on, we were going more and more separate ways. And I was on a very deep spiritual path that he really was not on. And he was a very, very good person. I mean, he was a deeply honest and beautiful human being, but we just were not, it was not to happen. And as each year went by, and we dedicated ourselves to our family, and we had very similar values in terms of the importance of family and the importance of honesty and so forth, but we were going to different places, and we were just not meeting in the road. So I think, and we went to lots of therapy. We had, I think, 12 years of therapy.
wow.
And I wish I had the money back. um,
Well,
and I had, that was couples therapy, there was my therapy. And I talk in the book about how much I really wanted somebody to tell me what to do.
yeah.
I think part of this whole issue about divorce is that maybe it's just women, I don't know, more women, that I wanted somebody to tell me the answer. And I wanted somebody to direct me, and there was nobody to direct me but me, or my also my. And I thought the only person to direct me was me, but really, you know, the world and my higher power in the universe was telling me this was not going to work. And I remember finally, the last few months of the marriage, I got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom or something. And I just looked at him and I said, "It's time to let this go." And I describe in the book the few things that happened over the last week or so. There were literally some divine interventions. I literally heard voices, and that the voice that I heard was lose the weight. And I did indeed actually lose 25 pounds the month after the marriage ended. But I knew when I heard that voice, it was not the weight, it was the physical weight, but it was the weight of a relationship that was just weighing me down. And the relief came later, because when you do the worst thing you can possibly do, and it's happened, well, then everything else is sort of, maybe some things are easier, and
Mm,
then and it's still equally hard to actually face what you've created, which is a whole different kind of life, other than the one that I really loved in many ways, but I know I could not maintain any further.
right. Were there any parts of the story that you were hesitant to share?
Oh, great question. There are some childhood things in there about my parents, and some very that and actually a couple of things I took out, because I deeply loved and care for my parents, and I know that they did every possible thing that they could, but they were really kind of personal, and I did not want to portray them in a terrible light, and some of them are pretty profoundly dysfunctional. And there were a few things about that I decided not to. Actually, interestingly enough, I had actually written another book before this book. And it was actually telling all about the terrible things that happened in my marriage. And then I actually took a trip to Ireland, and I had this very deep experience with the feminine, the divine feminine, and I realized people really didn't need to know about all the crummy things that happened in my marriage. What they needed to know about is how you recover from something that is so hard that you think you'll never have to do. And that's ultimately what I decided to write the book about.
Let's go there. So,
Okay.
recovering your inner strength.
Yeah.
We are taping in April of 2025, and the world is. I can't even find the word for it, Catherine. The world is. It's like we're in the birth canal, and birth is beautiful and amazing and powerful and dangerous and like all of these things all at once, and I think that's how I feel that the world is in right now. And um finding your inner, it's now a time to find and rediscover your inner strength
Yes.
as a person, as a soul. We signed up to be here right now, and we, as you going through a divorce and life post pre I mean pre and post divorce, you have to dial in with that inner strength. And we are going through the inner strength. How are you? Oh my gosh, I have like 50 questions for you. How are how are you using the tools that you gathered during your journey today?
Well, one thing I'm doing is I'm developing a series called Recovering Your Inner Wonder Woman, because I
Oh,
think
beautiful.
we all have one. I'm so glad you asked that.
Linda Carter Wonder Woman, right? Not the new stuff. Like I want I'm thinking Linda Carter. Okay.
Right. Perfect. Thank you for clarifying. 66, she's almost 70. Yeah, she rocks. Um, I'm so glad you asked that because I don't know how many conversations I've been with people that are absolutely terrified. I
Mhm.
mean, seriously terrified. Uh, some of whom are part of groups that are being questioned, like LGBT people, but also just people are just shrinking. And there's a couple of things. One is, and it's actually in the book, and I didn't find out until after it was written, that it's actually a quote from Winston Churchill. And the quote is, "When you're in hell, keep going." And really, that kept me going, that it is going to get better somehow. And I think I just wrote a newsletter on this, actually, that there's a famous uh, failed expedition, actually, to the Antarctica of Ernest Shackleton. It was like 1914. And the what they said was, what he says is that the biggest thing that he had as a leader was optimism, because I mean
Mm,
they lost everything, and the optimism is what got them through. All those people lived through that expedition, and that is not true of other similar kinds of expeditions. So the actual optimism, I think, is absolutely critical. I think also just some very basic you know, neurological practices. One is literally just breathing deeply. And any kind of meditation practice you have right now is going to be worthwhile and worth doing, 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour a day. Breathing, whether it's breathing, but there's some religious meditations with, actually, from the Sufi tradition, just saying the word Allah, Allah. And I know we have a lot of baggage about Islam in this country, but it's literally been found through research that the AL sound will calm your nervous system.
mhm.
So just being able to say those, so having some sort of a spiritual practice that calms you, and whatever belief you have in something greater than yourself, is very important to pull that in right now. And it differs enormously for every human being. I also think I can't emphasize enough, a community of people.
Yeah.
I'm actually part of we actually just met just a few minutes ago, a concerned group of friends, and we are laughing about saving the world. We're having a great time, and we're talking together about the things that we can do practically. Um, and I think also to remember that we are the power in this time,
Mhm.
and when we lose power and we give it to other people, that is when we lose ourselves. And that our confidence in who we are and the beliefs we have and the power that we have, and this country has had an enormous history, and it's not all very pretty. but we have incredible strength and dynamism. And the number of people right now that are rising up are without number. I mean, finding them all over the place. It's all over the social media, but people that are just starting these pop-up groups that are just with tremendous energy, that are fighting back. I'm sure there's a huge demonstration this weekend, but there are the groups that have kept working day after day after day, and which is why we have as much sanity as we have in the world. And to not forget the extraordinary communities we have of people, and to connect with them face to face, online. So all those things, I think community, your faith, knowing that your own inner strength is actually there, and having people that will remind you how important that is. So those are some of the things that come to mind, as well as your practice.
I love it. And I'm even trying to keep it simple, like smiling at people.
Yeah.
If I have a little extra,
Yeah.
I've even sent emails out to acquaintances and clients. I do it on a regular basis, but I was doing it this morning, and I think I did it for about 10 people. And
Yes.
I just was like, "Hey, I'm thinking of you. You
Yeah.
popped in my head, and I just wanna let you know that if there's anything I can do for you, let me know." And also holding space for people, because
Yes.
I think and I know you hold safe, sacred space. I can just feel it. Like, it's beautiful. And allowing people to say, "Today is a crappy day." And not taking it on, but holding that space and saying, "Come here. Have a cup of tea. Let's talk about it." And not trying to solve the problem, and not trying to fix, and not trying to do this, but just say, like, "Come here. I hear you. I see you."
Beautiful.
And
I love it. Yeah.
it's and I just traveled, and how blessed we are
Right.
to be where we are and have the options that we have, and we have the ability to come into community and support each other. And that's a beautiful gift as well.
Absolutely. And I think we also, and I probably gratitude, maybe as much
Mm.
those things. I have a friend who's trying to get together a trip to Africa, and there's some people from the Congo, and people are talking about how nervous they are about the global situation and so forth. And this friend says, "I'm not nervous. I'm from the Congo," which is now, of course, torn by civil war. We forget the profound amount of things that we have. Those of us that have prosperity, that we have friends, that we have food on the table, we have warmth, and we have so much to give. And I love that, Kelly. You talked about just the ordinariness of a smile, and I'm thinking about that a lot lately. The number of people I run across in a day, and how much they need even a smile and a wink, or just something positive, because we're all trying really hard,
And
even people
it's
I agree with,
Oh, absolutely, right?
especially
I
if I
mean,
agree with.
that's and that is the reason why the show is called The Being Curious Show, because I can go anywhere and have any kind of conversation with someone. And if you do it through listening and pure, authentic curiosity, you
Yes.
can have conversations with anyone. And I think if both, whatever side you're on,
Hmm.
here, there, everywhere, like, right? It's not left or right, it's not black or white. It's
Right.
very much like where you are in this dimension and this planet right now. If you lean into someone that you might be disagreeing with, and just do it through curiosity and say, "Tell me more." And I'm here to listen, and I'm not here to do that. And breathing and the gratitude. It's so important. And I feel that is what's going to help us heal. I really, really do.
Thank you for saying that. I think that's so important, and it's so easy. And to listen to all the negative voices is just to give them power. So thank you so much for underlying that. 'Cause it's really critical right now.
It really, really is, right?
Yeah.
And be observant. I mean, that's the other thing is if you see someone struggling, how can I help? And
Right.
again, maybe someone doesn't want you to fix it for them, but
Mm.
again, just being heard is it's so important.
And it's so unusual. So yes, absolutely. They don't need my solution.
No, and if they, yet if they ask for it, you're more than happy to share and just say, here's my experience, here's my perspective. Something that I'm with my husband of oh gosh, we just celebrated our anniversary.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. We get a gold star for this one, right? You get a gold star for yours too. It something that's getting us through conversations because not only are we work together, we're married, we're parents, there's a lot going on. We're communication is key, and I know communication is very important to you. Something that we are really trying as a couple to say when we see ourselves going down what could be a negative path in our discussions together, um, is I say my perspective, and my perspective in the situation is this, and he'll even correct me, and he'll say, well, that's your perspective, and we're starting to use some of that terminology, and it really helps because your perspective is your perspective. It's not right, it's not wrong. It is what you're bringing to the table. And I don't know why, but I felt that I should tell you about my perspective and using that in our discussions.
Great. That's a great easy tip for people too. I think so. That's easy and practical. So thank you for that.
Hey, I'm trying. so of you're writing this book, you're going through this huge life change. What surprised you the most about yourself as you walked this path?
Ooh, great question again. I think it really was that I did have strength because, and it's just funny to say, but I didn't realize until a few months before it finally got published that I was trained as a child not to be strong.
Mm,
I had
okay.
a mother that had mental health issues, and it was not. I had a very patriarchal, caring but patriarchal father. It was not imbued in me that I was a strong human being, and I think I hid from my own strengths so much from the process. So it was the process of really um, revitalizing a strength that I had inside that I didn't really know that I had. And I find myself, and I'm getting more secure in it now, but an identity that I never thought I would have, and a freedom that I never thought that I would have, and that has no script, which is an absolute joy, and some
Yeah.
days kind of scary. There are not the usual stereotypes to fall back on when you do something that uh, you were trained not to do, like get a divorce. So, but I think the identity becomes stronger and stronger every day. I get more confident in the risks. But I did not realize to what extent I had been trained to be weak. And that was an enormous surprise.
So, w how did your upbringing as a minister's daughter, I mean, tapping into what you just said, how did that influence you? I mean, it just seems like it was just it's almost like to the DNA. It was just so present.
Well, it's interesting because I have a really very strong memory when I was probably in college. We went to see my father grew up in Northwest Georgia, and actually, there's actually a graveyard there where that goes back to my own relatives to the Revolutionary War and a church that my relatives founded. I'm from like 7 generations of Methodist ministers, and I remember going to visit a elderly cousin, and she was like in a nursing home. And she was, I mean, very frail and ill and so forth. And all she could talk about was her absolute faith and gratitude.
Hmm.
And I was stunned by that. And it made a profound difference to me that life really is about faith and gratitude. And I think that has, and my father, for all of his imperfections, he was very big on gratitude and not in the most beautiful way. But I think that is profoundly I think influenced me and my sisters as well, that we do feel extraordinarily grateful for the lives that we have. And I think faith, and I think faith is the most profound and deep characteristics of life, and maybe the most important, and probably most important when we see it the least, and it at least seems to be present. And but all, along with that was the part of thinking I had to be a certain way, which was the
Mm.
model of obedience to something, and there was a little bit of damnation in there too. I,
Sure.
I did actually, and somehow it came up on my phone the other day. I did actually was at the Billy Graham Crusade in 1956 in New York, And I remember that vividly. That whole evangelical piece is a very strong part of my background. I think there was extraordinary beauty in it, and there's extraordinary darkness in it. And I think I've had all of those pieces of my life.
Oh, yes, you have.
But ultimately, I think it gave me an enormous spiritual basis, and I think you're right. It is in my DNA. So that has been a great backbone for everything. In Because I think a lot of life is about riding the darkness and learning how to deal with the darkness. So I think I had a pretty good dose of both of them to get started.
7 generations of like talk about coming here and with your machete and saying, "Not on my dime. I'm changing this." Like, think about it. That's powerful.
Well, I think so, and I think I have been told, and I many times by spiritual teachers, there's always one person in the family that is there to change the whole ancestral line.
Mhm.
I've been clear for a very long time that it was always me to do things differently. Because my father was divorced from my mother, and that I was going to do it differently. And our divorce was extraordinarily loving and extraordinarily caring. He actually passed away a few months ago, and I was actually there at his passing. And we continued to support each other quite deeply as time went on. And I feel like the heritage of love stayed with me very, very deeply.
How was it being with him as he transitioned?
Um, it was very sad.
Of course, of course.
Well, he was disabled for 2 years prior to his death. So, um, but during those 2 years, as hard as that was, when people are in that lack of capacity, he could not speak very well. He could not walk. You know, you're just in presence. It taught me a lot about just the quietness of presence. And in one sense, it was when I would visit him, it was like, in one sense, the most treasured hour of my week to just be with somebody when they are just their presence. You're not
Mhm.
expecting to be anything. So it's sort of you just love them for who they were and who they've been to you in your life. So it kind of, it deepened my ability to be present with him and with other people, I think. And I think I'm still in a bit of grief about it,
Right,
because I mean, we were in each other's lives for 35 years.
right.
So I think to allow myself to admit how much grief there is, even though there quote unquote shouldn't be, which is I think a lot of what I thought. We were divorced our marriage was over for 10 years. How can I possibly be in grief? But that's the way grief is. And you grow with grief when you let it rearrange you and you let it move you forward. So that's so that perhaps it's an enormous gift to me to be able to actually feel that and acknowledge that and so forth. We had a beautiful celebration of life for him. There was just a lovely claiming of the kind of quirky guy that he was. So I got to be part of all that. An incredible gratitude to my stepkids that still have me as part of the family.
That shows that you're doing the work. My little Kelly opinion, and it's beautiful. It's it's interesting when, Gwyneth Paltrow and her husband were going through their separation, and they called it conscious uncoupling, and that just buzzed everywhere, and I think they took a lot of shrapnel for that, and I actually dug into it a little bit, and I thought it was beautiful to see that maybe their agreement wasn't to be married, or it was to have kids, or maybe the contract was done, or maybe you saw the train going off the tracks a mile ahead. And why don't we just get off now rather than getting it so it's so scorched? And I think some people wait, and it's pure ego and anger. I watched my brother get divorced. It took 4 years for him and his wife to there. I mean, police were involved and lawyers were involved, and the only one winning was the lawyers. And I remember, I mean, I had to do Sunday visits with the kids. So, I mean, it was gross. And I remember saying to my brother, "Wrap this up. Keep it as clean and kind as you possibly can." And he just looked at me, he's like, "You don't understand what you're talking about." And I'm like, "Okay, keep it as clean and kind as you can." And I think that's important. And when you are doing the work and you can be with that soul at the end. And you had I just see that you had all these different agreements with him, and and the power to do it the way that you did is just it's just amazing.
Well, thank you. And it was a huge gift to myself too. You
Yeah,
know,
absolutely. How's your relationship with your daughter?
it's good. She's now married. She's 28 years old, and uh, she's creating a beautiful life for herself. She has two dogs and a cat.
Mm,
A house. They have a house and a cabin. So it's very sweet. She is also very self-consciously growing herself. And
beautiful.
I was 28 years old. I was living in Indonesia, and if they heard from me every 6 months, they were lucky. So so it's very sweet. And she also is a time when she's seeking independence. And I think we're learning how to have an adult relationship, which is quite different. So,
Oh, I have a 13-year-old and she thinks she's 28. So I'm I'm open to any advice.
oh, when they were 13, oh, I just think you're very lucky. But that's a whole different journey to actually acknowledge a person as an adult pure being. It's a very different journey, and it's been a rocky road too. But we are bound by our love, and we'll keep going.
I just love this. Who do you hope that will resonate with this book the most?
Great question. I think it's for somebody said recently that she thought it was for any breakup. And I think for many ways it's for people that are going through, I think it's for things that you didn't think you could manage. you know, I think clearly it's a relationship book, but also I think it's a lot for people that are in various kinds of grief, because a lot of the book is about grief. It's about the grief of letting go of kids as they grow up, obviously a relationship, but and also just all the things, the skills you have to muster when you are not wanting to make a change. And
Absolutely.
so, yeah, that's probably that's a very general notion, but I think those are pretty universal feelings.
I think there's a lot of ways you could pull divorcee, that word, out of your title and insert so many other words, experiences, crisis, and this is a great manual for a lot of those different experiences.
I think there are things that people would be very relate to. Absolutely, yes, I do.
Have you received any surprising reactions from readers? Something you didn't expect when you first published it?
Um, Yes, a couple of them. I got actually very early on a text from a divorce lawyer, a divorce therapist.
Ooh,
She said, "I found this incredibly helpful. I'm thinking about a divorce myself. I think this would be really helpful for people that are considering divorce. I think it actually gives them hope. So that the hope is about that people can continue in ways that they never thought they could. In the even letting go of something that's so precious to them, they can actually continue with great strength and with great beauty. I also, some of the things people related to, I just things that happened to me in my childhood that I thought were pretty terrible. Some people thought they were hilarious.
do you have an example?
Sorry, what did you say?
Please share an example.
Oh, it had to do with this thing with my mom. She was really into enemas.
Okay.
It's so gross, and some
Yeah.
people thought that was absolutely hilarious. And so a couple of those childhood things, and the number of people that were really. I mean, you always never know with your friends, right? Are they telling you the truth or not? But I think
Right.
they are telling. Enough of them are spoken to me in different ways that they have found um, things that I was surprised. One person told me that that she felt it was a love letter to my ex-husband. That was an interesting way. Um, but so anyway, it's been great feedback and very lovely to be of service to people, which is really what I wanted to be in the first place.
Absolutely. So, has your perspective on marriage, motherhood, womanhood, how is that different and how has that shifted from the beginning of writing the book and then where you are at today?
Um, I can't imagine. The person I was when I first got married is like from another planet. So, but when going to a marriage, and I was not young. I was in my 40s when I first married. But I think the kind of expectations I had from marriage, which was
Mm.
we would meet each other's needs, is no longer the definition I have of marriage. It's much more bell hooks talking about being we spiritually serve one another and find each other's strengths. In terms of parenthood, I think it has been a bit of a painful reminder or learning that a lot of the pain and the deficiencies of my childhood have showed up so much in my parenting, and that happens to everybody. So to see the prominence of things that I would not have, if I had really known or been able to process some of my own trauma earlier, I think I would have made some different parenting decisions. Not that we have a wonderful relationship and so forth, but that's always, I think, a very hard thing to discover is the particular about maybe things you would have really liked to have done different as a mom. So those two things. I think you asked about marriage and about parenting. So, but the need to honor people as total adults and not their agenda was more important than mine. That was a whole new learning there.
Bam.
I, I,
Right?
I mean, I don't get to run the show, right? So learning just a level of listening and regard and dignity for my daughter as a fellow human being, and that um, it just has been that has been a wonderful journey and a difficult journey.
I So I'm 13-year-old and I have an 18-year-old son. I find myself giving compassion towards my parents because my daughter is bigger and stronger and smarter than I was. But she does things and I'm like, oh, I bet I did that too. And then, oh, now I know why they did that. Oh, and I just go, hey guys, right? And we are a work in progress, and we don't get a manual. When the baby's born, they don't give you a manual and say, "This is what your child's gonna be like, and here, get through it." When we were in Jamaica, there was this lady with this little 5-month-old, and she was doing great. You can tell she was a first-time mom. She was doing great. And I'm like, "Hey, is there anything either like surprising or I forgot. I asked how motherhood was going. And she's like, I think I have it all figured out. And I looked at her and I smiled and I said, good for you. And then I went and I kept eating.
Right. Oh my. Yes.
I was like, yeah, you're doing great.
Well, I'm glad to hear that somebody is, right?
I was like, oh my gosh. So while you were writing, like going back to the book and your writing process, what was your process like?
Well, as I said, at first I just started writing, when the marriage ended, every single day about everything that had happened, and went on and on. I just wrote whatever came into my mind.
Yeah.
And that was what I had. And then what ended up happening was, so then I gave it to an editor, and the editor said, I have absolutely no idea why you were married to this guy. And so,
Okay.
so that was what led me to actually realize that I was writing the wrong book. And that
Oh,
when I came back from actually a trip to Ireland, and I started to write again, and I just took the things that were most emotionally poignant to me, that had been, those are the things where the deepest and longest feelings. Those are the things that came into the actual book. I had a wonderful editor locally here, Write for Writers, Beth Wright, and she helped me a lot with just the sequencing was really hard. I tried about 4 or 5 different ways to sequence it, and finally it is pretty much chronological. So it was really just keeping at it, and then when I finally went into the beta readers, which was a while back, that was the time when he got sick. So
okay.
when he had a big emotional that was a huge emotional thing today. So I ended up neglecting the book for a while, but it primarily was just writing those pieces. And then when I finally got to that place where when people that have written memoirs will understand this, you don't know when to end it.
Mm.
So, and actually, I the very end of it, he actually when he went into the assisted living and was very ill. That also stopped me for months because I was trying to figure out how to rewrite the book with all this happening, and ultimately I turned it into like one paragraph. I couldn't capture all those things. So it was pretty much the deepest emotional moments that I could recall, and then finally I got a sense of what could be the end, and then just carrying on with that. But a lot of the beta readers were extraordinarily wonderful. Having a writer that could continually look at what was valuable, what people would really want to hear about, and pushing me deeper, continuing pushing deeper when I wasn't really getting to the core of the issue, and that helped enormously.
Is there an example in the book where you thought maybe you're just kind of showing me like just scratching the surface, and then they encouraged you to go a little deeper on it?
Oh, let me think about that. Um, I think there was one particular scene that actually one of my favorite scenes in the books actually was when I was up in it was a family cabin up in northern Minnesota that I've enjoyed for many, many years. And it's an extraordinary night when I go up there. And actually, it was my darkest time. And I sort of started writing about it, but she really pushed it to really actually really expose the darkness of that time. And that was something I didn't particularly want to look at, but it actually created I think it created a lot of insight into what the journey is actually like for people. There are moments of enormous darkness, and they did get better. So, yeah.
Cue the Winston Churchill quote.
It would keep going,
Just keep going.
Be there, yeah.
So you have this beautiful book,
Mm-hmm.
and you're also a motivational speaker. Tell us a little bit about how people can connect with you on that, and what topics. I mean, it's recovery topics,
Right.
getting better with humor, healing, and spirituality. Um, if someone's interested, and what would oh my gosh, I apologize. I'm thinking in codes, and because you're just beautiful, and you have so much to share. This book is so powerful. You are so powerful. I'm going to go back to you're a public speaker. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, thank you. Thanks for asking. I taught for years. I've taught courses on visualization. And actually, many years ago, there's a wonderful author named Robert Fritz who did all kinds of work on how crazy stuff like he worked with villages in Africa about creating a vision, and they would like create their own roads. It was actually the original program was actually reduced recidivism in people in prisons. They taught people to actually have a positive vision about their future, and they actually found that guess what? They didn't want to be in prison anymore, and they didn't go back. So I think the topic of vision has always fascinated me. We were actually talking about this morning with some people about the time that we were in, how to actually train people to have a positive vision. So that whole notion, I think, is a huge and a constant an issue for people, is how to actually create and maintain a vision for the kind of success and the kind of beauty they want for their lives. Yeah, I'm been working a lot with various kinds of meditations and ways to keep people centered in difficult times, whether it's relationship breakup or whether it's a global crisis or things like that. But just the real question is, how do you keep your center? Every single time, because we are always getting thrown off our center. So I've got work in that. I've worked with Buddhists, the Buddhist practice, the Sufi practice. They all really preach ways that you can actually bring yourself back to your center with effectiveness and beauty in times when the forces of the day are pushing you at the wrong place. And then the relationship recovery thing is a great love for mine for now. I also have been 12-stepper for many years, and doing that with humor and with vulnerability is I was recently talking about the 9 step, which are basically how you really recover a relationship. And it's not about liking somebody, but it's about giving them consistently dealing with somebody with dignity and living out of that. So those are some things. I'm actually working on some other topics right now, but I've had my long-term paid career was in training and development, and great love for all those topics and the ability for people to um, people have an extraordinary ability to be inspired by themselves and by the continuing willing to create a vision with a little bit of practice.
You keep showing me a bobber, like a fishing bobber,
Uh,
and how and it always just kind of, and even when it flips, it still flips over and it just does that. And I
great.
don't know why. I don't know why you're showing me a fishing bobber, but you're showing me a fishing bobber. And I pushed it away and it came back and I was like, no, it's very important to say it's a fishing bobber. I'm like, okay,
Okay,
that's
well,
fantastic.
it's almost fishing opener, so you must be thinking about that.
There we go. So before we wrap up, you are also, and it's a Sufi healer.
Mhm.
Let's talk about that because pre-interview we touched on it a little bit, and I just thought it's an amazing um, a faith practice
Yes.
knowledge base that you have that is absolutely, I think, that our audience would be very curious about.
Yeah. Um, I'm tiny bit afraid I'm going to run out of battery here for a minute, so I'll be pretty quick. I'm going to have to actually lean back here, and I think we're going to be fine. Okay.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Sufi healer. So I ran into this 2 years ago. I walked into a seminar into a woman's condo, and I immediately felt like this huge weight was falling from me. And she has studied Sufism, and it is a small sect of Islam. It's traced to it's a very mystical part of Islam. And if you're familiar with the poet Rumi,
Mhm.
um, he was actually a Sufi. It's not. I know we have a lot of baggage in this country about Islam, but this is a particular segment of Islam that I think is extremely powerful. I ended up being exposed to a doctor actually who had developed a process based on Sufi healing, where he's had extraordinary success in working with people, everything from a headache to the most serious cancers. And this particular process, it's similar to some energy healing. It understands that some sort of negative thing has gone into your body, first of all, spiritually, which ultimately becomes illness. And the process that he has developed, called the A-Pure system, works on getting kind of with what are the images, and actually very much with a very strong practice of bringing in the divine. It works with actually alleviating those symptoms and ultimately that disease. It's not a quick kind of thing. He has an incredible story that he told about a woman with throat cancer, and she had been doing some healing but was very unsuccessful with it. And he happened to know this woman, and he told her, he said, well, and she was asking him, why isn't this working? And he said, well, you always talk terribly about people. You gossip and you're mean. And he said, if you want to recover, you need to work on that. Well, she did start working on it. She did some profound personal work, dramatically changed her personal behavior, and did ultimately cure herself from throat cancer.
Wow.
And he has many stories like that. And it's not to see this as some sort of a magical thing, but these are people that work very hard spiritually on themselves. There's some chanting in the Sufi tradition. They're linked to what's called the 99 names of God, which is true of Islam. The sound al, it's been shown. It just the sound itself is an extraordinary healing quality, and in the Sufi healing, you depend on those sounds, but it's also primarily to bring in the energy and the love of the divine. And it's been an extraordinary healing practice to me. It's cured me of Lyme's disease and a lifelong depression in a way that nothing else has ever touched me. And so during this program that I'm in, I've been learning how to do that, which is, I think, tremendous service to myself and to other people, because we all need healing, and maybe more today than, people always need healing, either whether it's the smallest physical thing or it's wounds that we haven't been able to process. And it's, I think, extraordinarily useful at doing that. And it's helped me tremendously. So it's been a great gift to my life that I happened to run into this.
That's beautiful. And that's why I wanted to shine just a little bit of a light at the end of our conversation on it. Okay, you guys, Yearning for Love, A Reluctant Divorcee's Rocky Road to Nirvana by Katherine Barton. You can get it on her website, as we have on the bottom of the banner, or on Amazon. Katherine, any parting words before we wrap up?
No, much appreciation for your curiosity and sensitivity. And the book is also available if you ask any local bookstore almost in the world to order it, they can also do that for you.
Oh, beautiful. Yes, let's support our little local
Local,
bookstores. Absolutely.
thank you. So thank you so much for the opportunity to talk so deeply about things that are so important, and for your ongoing curiosity and the way you've just worked with so many people, Kelly, to give them visibility.
Mm, well, my pleasure. Well, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
And we'll say goodbye to Katherine. And this is Kelly from the Being Curious Show. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you soon. Explore your higher consciousness with the Edge Media Platform. We're a multimedia platform dedicated to connecting curious teachers and seekers in a safe, welcoming space. Dive into spiritual growth with our print magazine, digital content, podcasts, and in-person experiences. Whether you're seeking wisdom or sharing it, we're here to inspire and uplift your journey, here, there, and everywhere. Connect with us today.